Hi, sixth graders. This is Miss Smedra. This is kind of the second part of it. This is if we've got, this is what's called a punnett square. And so it's kind of a way to figure out exactly what's going to happen to their offspring if two different organisms are crossed, but without, it's kind of like doing your work in math. So if I cross a brown-haired person with another brown-haired person, what's going to end up happening? Well, these big B and big B, little b, these are what are called our alleles. And so those are just the different forms of a gene. And so we'll just say that, we'll say that this is the dad and this is the mom. Well, the way you're going to want to set it up is usually it doesn't really matter which one you go across, but we know that the big B, it shows that it's a dominant trait, and the little b shows that it's recessive. So I'm just going to write this one going across. So big B, so this represents the dad. So this is the dad. And then the big B, and I'm color coding these so that you can see the difference. Big B and little b, these are going to represent the mom. And so if we're talking about the phenotype is, whoops, it would help if I wrote it correctly. Phenotype is what it physically looks like. And then because we've got two capital letters, we know that mom and dad both have brown hair. And then we know genotype is what it's genetically like. So it's kind of the letters. So mom is big B, little b, and dad is big B, big B. So just kind of keep that in mind. And we know that brown hair is dominant, so it's always going to kind of trump everything, and red hair is recessive. So if I cross these two, I'm going to take big B from dad and big B from mom. And then here I'm going to take big B from dad and big B from mom. And here I'm going to take big B from dad, and I'm going to take my little b from mom. I'm going to take big B from dad and little b from mom. So these four are going to kind of represent what their possible children would be. And we're going to talk about kind of like a ratio, or what are their odds, what are their probability of getting kids with this genetic makeup. So if we're looking at this, if I take these two, so I've got 1, 2, so 2 out of 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 out of 4, or if we're simplifying it, that would be 1 out of 2 children or offspring would have the genotype. I cannot spell that right today. Would have the genotype big B, little b. And so genotype, remember, is genetic. So 2 out of 4 or 1 out of 2 would have the, whoops, it would help if I wrote it right, would have the genotype big B, big B. So that's them genetically. Well, what are they going to look like physically? Well, the phenotype, or physical, looking back at what these represent, well, the brown hair is dominant, the big B, so they are going to have brown hair. So their genotype is going to be big B, and their phenotype is going to be brown hair. So 2 out of 4 or 1 out of 2, if we're talking about percents, that would be about 50% of their kids are going to have that. Well, then let's go see what the other part is. Now, if we've got this other part, there's 1, 2, so 2 out of 4 or 1 out of 2 kids are going to have the big B with the recessive little b genotype. And that's what they look like genetically. Or, I'm sorry, not that they look like genetically. That's what they're going to show genetically. However, when we're talking about what are they actually going to look like, well, this big B is recessive, so this is going to have brown hair because they have the dominant trait is going to show over the recessive, even though it's got the recessive red hair. So that means maybe down the road they could have a kid that has red hair, but they're going to show that they have brown hair. So that is going to be their phenotype, what they physically look like. So if we're looking at this, the odds of them having a recessive red hair, that would be big B, little b, are 2 out of 4, 1 out of 2, which is 50%. So if we're talking about the overall odds of all of their possible offspring, really genotype or genetically, 50% are going to be big B, so they're going to be brown hair dominant. Brown hair dominant. Because big B is right there. However, the other 50% are going to be brown hair recessive because they carry that little red hair right here. But if you're looking at them, their phenotype, if we're talking about all of their kids, their phenotype is going to be 100%. So 100% of them are going to show that they have brown hair. That's like what they physically look like because they've got that recessive gene. So they're going to all look like they have brown hair. However, half of them are going to show that they have that brown hair recessive. So later on, 50% of them could have a kid with red hair, but they're all going to show that they have brown hair right now.